And welcome back to the Kennedy Space Center, where we are currently awaiting the second burn of the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, and then separation of Firefly's Blue Ghost lander from that second stage rocket. It lifted off at 1:11 and 39 seconds a.m. Eastern Time. I am joined by Ray Allensworth. She is the spacecraft program director at Firefly. Been doing a fantastic job. We watched the launch live. It took off. You said, bye, honey. This is a spacecraft you've been working on for so long. and then you saw it take off, and now we've been flying for about 47 minutes. What's your sense of how the team is doing, and how are you doing at this point?
My heart rate's come down a little bit. It's definitely very special to see it go. I think the team now, especially that team back in Texas, really this is where they're locking in. So, you know, we're about to go into payload deployment. The lander's powered off right now, but it will soon start that automated sequence to power on. So this is really where we start. So just a lot of anticipation building.
A shot on your screen now of that team that you're talking about from just outside Austin, Texas, the Firefly Aerospace Mission Operations Center. And the team is all there and, as you say, focused on the next steps. The company is, of course, based in Texas. They developed and built the lunar lander that is carrying, among other things, 10 NASA payloads. And if everything goes as planned, in 45 days, that Blue Ghost lander, which is uncrewed, there are no people on board this is purely a robotic mission. If everything goes as planned, it's going to land on Mare Crisium in the northern hemisphere of our moon. It's an area that, of course, NASA wants to study and was chosen specifically for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely. That place, you know, Apollo has visited there. We also believe future missions will want to go back there. So it's a really important place to go, gather data, and just prepare for what's next.
We still have a few more NASA payloads to cover throughout the show. We've talked about 8 of them. And now, finally, the last 2.
Last 2.
You ready? All right. Let's talk about it. And it starts with LUGRA, an acronym for Lunar GNSS Receiver Experiment, which was developed at Goddard Space Flight Center. LUGRA is one of the very first demonstrations to test GNSS signal reception and navigation on the lunar surface, right? These are satellites going around the Earth, but we're using them to develop location on the moon. GNSS is the Global Navigation Satellite System, which is commonly thought of as GPS. Of course, that's the American satellite system nomenclature for it. If successful, this would pave the way for operational use by future lunar missions such as the Orion spacecraft, the planned lunar orbiting station called Gateway, and robotic and human landers. Ray, of course, Blue Ghost is using different navigation to get there, but imagine if you could use GNSS.
Yeah, that'd be really amazing in the future. You know, quite like use your phone, pull up Apple Maps, Google Maps. You want to put in a place, you go exactly there. That's the future of what could happen on the moon.
And that's pretty cool. That would be an advantageous thing for anything going to the moon, right? How did you get this mounted on the spacecraft?
Yeah, so LUGRA is mounted on our top deck. It's on one of those two-axis gimbals. So LUGRA shares a panel with NGLR. And this is a really special payload. This was in partnership with the Italian Space Agency. And so, yeah, we're excited to have that and get it operating.
First equipment for the Italian Space Agency to have on the surface of the moon. We know they are very excited about this. Let's talk about our last payload now, the final one. This one really kicks in right about the end of, right when they were landing, right? As it kicks up a plume. It's SCALPS, and it stands for Stereo Cameras for Lunar Plume Surface Studies. It was developed at NASA's Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia. SCALPS is an array of cameras placed around the base of the lunar lander to collect imagery during and after descent. Those images will then be compiled to produce a 3D view of the surface, and not just for the novelty of it. As trips to the moon increase, the number of payloads touching down in proximity to one another will also increase. And you see it there as it's mounted on the Blue Ghost lander, and now you're seeing an animation of it landing. Scientists and engineers, they need to be able to accurately predict the effects of landings and how much of that regolith, which we know is harmful, gets kicked up on instruments and equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. SCALPS is really going to be gathering so much data. It's the only payload that's powered on during descent. And just like you said, is exactly right. It's gathering data. It's seeing the lunar surface, what happens right before, at, and after landing. So SCALPS has flown before on a previous mission. This is their second time. We're excited to fly them. It's our first time with them, but it'll really inform all those future missions when they go to land on the moon.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ray, for the breakdown. Blue Ghost will deploy in about 15 minutes from now. And Ray, what can you tell us about the journey it's going to take to the moon?
So the journey to the moon is going to be elongated. It'll be 45 days in orbit. And we really want to keep everybody updated with us as we go along this journey. So we'll be doing daily updates on our mission page and our X channel. We'll also be doing weekly updates. And so these will be updates coming from the Mission Operations Center. And we'll release them on Thursday afternoon on our social channels. So we'll really want everybody to kind of go with us on this road trip to the moon.
Video updates from the team, not video of the moon.
Correct.
That will come later. But this will be a really great way for you guys to engage with the audience and show them the progress that you're making.
Absolutely. You know, there are going to be times during orbit and the surface where we'll share photos and videos, but these weekly video updates will really be coming from our Mission Operations Center, from those engineers that are operating the spacecraft.
All right, looking forward to that. Spacecraft separation will be just the beginning for Blue Ghost. Here's more on what we can expect on Blue Ghost's mission to the moon. All right, joining us now to talk about NASA's reaction to the progress Firefly Aerospace has made so far in the Blue Ghost mission is NASA Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy, former NASA astronaut as well. Thank you so much for being here. Well, you were here for the launch. You watched a beautiful launch. Your reaction?
Wow. Well, I think it's easy to forget at a moment like this how much work goes into, how many things have to go just exactly right. So I'm excited. My congratulations to Firefly, to SpaceX, to the NASA team, everybody who played a part in this, including the people who put the instruments on it as well. There's a lot of work to do yet, but it is just amazing to achieve this, and it was such a gorgeous launch.
Right. I mean, beautiful. You had the moon up there, nearly full of waning gibbous,
Yes.
97%.
Yes.
Want to make sure we get that right. But yeah, and then you could see it. It was such clear conditions.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is I've seen so many launches that were going to the space station, and they disappear quickly. They're going up the East Coast, and they're gone. And so the trajectory is just so noticeably different. You're like, oh yeah, this one's going somewhere else. It's really exciting.
It seemed louder than normal, because I've seen a lot of launches like you, and it was powerful as well. Well, I want to ask you about a couple of things. There's a lot of hard work ahead. Of course, Firefly Aerospace, as Ray has been telling us throughout the broadcast, it's got some challenges, right? They've got to land on the moon, which is not easy, and that's the nature of this program. So what would you say as part of the leadership here at NASA to the Firefly team about the work they have ahead?
Yeah, well, this is a great moment, but I think what we all know is that you can celebrate a moment and then you have to move on. There's a lot of work ahead, as you pointed out. This is incredibly hard. And I think my message to the Firefly team is congratulations for getting where you are, but keep your eye on the ball because you got a lot of work going. But I think one of the other important messages is we do this as a team. This is a team sport. And so the collaboration within the Firefly team, but also with your partners, is really important. NASA has your back. We know that we're all doing things for the first time. So we just have to work together to solve any problems that come, and then we'll be successful together.
Great words. I know that you must appreciate hearing that.
Yeah, no, I think the team back home really appreciates that. They, I think they know that, we're all one team, but it's another thing to hear it, especially in this moment. Because like you said, really their job is beginning now. And, we have to refocus and start our mission.
All right. Thank you very much, Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy, for being here. You are with the outgoing administration. Your time at NASA, we really appreciate your leadership here and all that you've done and coming to these launches and being a part of these launch broadcasts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daryl. It's a great way to go out.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pam. All right. Well, let's go now to SpaceX in Hawthorne, California, where Jesse Anderson is live as we await that second burn. Jesse.
Thanks, Daryl. We are actually currently, as you can see on your screen, in that second burn, SES-2, here right now. This burn is a very short burn. And we've got live views of the MVAC engine there ignited on your screen, again carrying the 2 lunar payloads on Falcon 9's second stage. This burn will last just over a minute long. And this MVAC engine, the thrust on the MVAC engine is about 220,000 pounds of thrust. So even though this burn is only a minute long, it provides a lot of thrust for the vehicle to carry those payloads to its targeted drop-off orbit. Again, this is the second of 3 burns that were in for the MVAC engine for this mission today. We are coming up on the
nominal orbit insertion.
Perfect timing. We have the conclusion that is SECO-2 of that MVAC engine burn, and we also heard that call out for a confirmation of good orbit. So it looks like we are on track for the first payload separation in just a few minutes from now. Now, if you're just now joining us, we have just had SES-2 and SECO-2. That's the second of 3 burns for the MVAC engine. And it's been a great launch so far. Next, we have the deployment of Blue Ghost coming up here in just about 4 minutes from now. And once deployed into a lunar transfer orbit, the Blue Ghost lander will begin its approximate 45-day journey to the moon, where it will land on the Mare Crisium for NASA's payloads to perform numerous science and technology demonstrations, including lunar subsurface drilling, sample collection, and X-ray imaging of Earth's magnetic field to advance research for human missions on the moon and provide insights into how space weather impacts the planet. So very exciting coming up here. Again, Blue Ghost deployment is coming up in just under 4 minutes from now. And just to recap the mission so far, we had an on-time liftoff at 1:11 a.m. Eastern Time, and everything has been proceeding nominally. We had a good stage separation, which occurred about 2.5 minutes into flight. That was followed by a successful landing of Falcon 9's first stage on a drone ship. Just read the instructions. And that was also the 5th flight and landing for the specific booster that supported tonight's mission. And for those of you following along, that booster also supported NASA's Crew 9 mission, RRT-1, as well as 2 other Starlink missions. Now, just before the T+8 minute mark, we had a successful second engine cutoff for SECO-1, and that was also followed by a confirmation of a good orbital insertion. And that was the first burn of the second stage engine. The second one, again, just completed just a few moments ago. Now, the vehicle is currently coasting with the payloads attached. And we are a couple minutes away from the first deployment of our first spacecraft. Again, that will be Blue Ghost. And there you can see an awesome live view of the Blue Ghost spacecraft on board Falcon 9's second stage. And we're just about 2.5 minutes from deploy of Blue Ghost. And this is a cool view. We do have the canister just below that spacecraft protecting ispace's payload there. So we do have 2 payloads on board. But again, the next milestone coming up is that separation of Firefly's Blue Ghost lunar lander. Just as a reminder, once Blue Ghost is deployed from Falcon 9's second stage, it will have about a 45-day journey on its way to the moon, and then it will have about 14 days of lunar surface exploration. So this is a pretty exciting mission. Very excited to see the spacecraft begin its journey here in just about a minute and a half. And once again, there you can see a live view of Blue Ghost there on your screen, still attached to Falcon 9's second stage. We're anticipating deployment in just about a minute from now. I'm getting some really awesome, cool views. This is looking aft at the MVAC engine with the beautiful Earth in the background. These lunar missions are really cool because the Falcon 9 vehicle gets to get really far away from Earth, and we get these awesome Earth views. We are approaching deployment of Firefly's Blue Ghost here in just about 30 seconds. With these live views that you're seeing here, we should be able to get a really good view of deployment here coming up in about 10 seconds or so.
Firefly Blue Ghost, separation confirmed.
And there you could see, and you also heard the call out for confirmation that Blue Ghost is drifting away from Falcon 9's second stage. From all of us here at SpaceX, it has been a pleasure having you on board, Blue Ghost. Safe travels. SpaceX is honored to be a part of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services initiative to deliver science and technology to the lunar surface. And we want to thank Firefly for entrusting us with today's historic mission.
All right, thank you very much, Jesse and the SpaceX team.
FC Com on ops.
Wow, what a ride. We're listening in
First command
now.
at 3.1 is to enable carrier.
Com is go to enable carrier.
FC, please enable carrier.
You're listening to the Firefly Mission Operations Center team.
All comms be advised, SpaceX has delivered the separation state.
Flight FC, I confirm that I see carrier enabled.
Copy.
Comms confirms carrier is enabled.
All right, Ray, this is your team. They're talking. You got the flight director in
Com
there.
steps 3.2, 3.3, please verify at your discretion.
Right, so
Tell us what they're saying.
So right now you're hearing the team go through the steps that are required to power on the lander and determine its position relative to the sun and make that first communications contact. So those mission operation controllers just outside of Austin, Texas are going through that process. It's an autonomous process that'll take several minutes. And so, you know, the spacecraft right now is approximately 850 48 kilometers away from the Earth, and they're going to start pinging that lander as it's going through this autonomous process, so we'll be able to hear that.
Before we're in range of the Hawaii ground station. And then in approximately 50 minutes, a penumbra event that FIDO will update.
Right, so he's talking about that first ground station that we're going to make contact with. That's in Hawaii. So they're configuring that ground station to be able to make contact with the lander.
And to be clear, you mentioned they're getting ready to power up, but they have to establish that communication first, right?
Absolutely. So that autonomous process will take several minutes. So that's the power up process. And then they'll start sending what we call no-op commands to the lander. So it's just pinging the lander about every 60 seconds.
All comms be advised, we would drop off nominally.
And then we're basically just waiting for that kind of handshake, that just acknowledgement from the spacecraft that it's hearing us.
And that was a good call out as well, that they confirmed.
PD or FIDO, if you do have the correct separation time, please comment in the logbook.
That SpaceX dropped you off exactly where you needed to be in orbit at 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah, so that's definitely a really important check. Figuring out exactly where the spacecraft is step one. And then once you get your orientation, it's really forming that baseline of where's the spacecraft, what state is it in, and then moving forward from there.
BSP is available for the trajectory.
Copy FIDO, please comment the expected penumbra time as well in the logbook.
So you hear Jackson there, he's our flight director, kind of walking the team through those initial steps of gaining signal.
And we jumped right into the work.
The file is ready, and we are working on commenting in the logbook right now.
That the Firefly team is doing in order to get that signal. We barely had a moment to soak up that separation, so we're going to re-cue that up right now. Ray, and I want to get your thoughts as the sun participated in a little bit of drama as it separated to go to the moon. Yeah,
you couldn't ask for a more perfect shot there with the sun in the background. Look at it go.
Sunburst.
It's beautiful. I need a frame of that. But yeah, you see it. I think how she stated it's drifting away. That's kind of a bittersweet thought, but it's on its way to the moon.
That was an incredible shot.
The sun.
Yeah. You couldn't have intentionally framed that up any better with the sunburst. Just
we planned it exactly that.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well, the team is continuing to work, and we heard a little bit of flurry of activity because, as you mentioned and have talked about throughout the show, that this is the moment where the Firefly team really engages, the moment to acquire the signal from the spacecraft. If you're just joining us, we launched at 1:11:39 a.m. Eastern Time from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket carrying the Blue Ghost.
We expect rate damping in approximately 18.5 minutes.
Then we traveled, did a couple of burns for about an hour and a half, flying with various coast phases in between there. And then you just saw the separation at 1 hour and 5 minutes. And now, myself, Daryl Nail with NASA, and Ray Allensworth, Spacecraft Program Manager with Firefly, are listening in to the communications that the team is doing as they work to acquire the signal.
Yeah, and this signal, it can take anywhere from between 5 and 30 minutes to get that signal. Anywhere in that is considered nominal. So we're right at the very beginning of that phase. And so, like you said, the team it's now time to lock in. They're all focused. They should start getting data very soon on those consoles.
And we're going to stay with it for a fair amount of time.
The path to the BSP is available in the logbook.
We're going to stay with it in order to see if we can get an early AOS, but understanding, as you mentioned, that this is not exactly an exact science, right? I mean, this spacecraft is moving in its orbit, and you need a good lineup of the antennas on the spacecraft and those on the ground.
Absolutely, you said it exactly right. You have to get the spacecraft in the right spot, lined up with that first ground station in Hawaii. So there's a little bit of margin as to when exactly that'll perfectly line up. Like I said, anywhere in that time frame is considered nominal. But, we'll start pinging that lander soon as it goes through this autonomous power-up process.
Let's talk a little bit about the path ahead. Once, assuming we get an AOS, What happens then? What will we see happen in the next few hours and then days?
So when we get that acquisition of signal, there's some very initial
Allcom be advised,
health
SSC
checks that
has
we'll go
AOS,
through.
standby.
Oh.
That was AOS.
How about
Incredible.
that? We have acquisition.
Con, please monitor your alarms.
We have acquisition of signal with the Blue Ghost lander.
Flight GNC and
How about
ops,
that?
I confirm
That's
we booted
incredible.
in safe flight and idle mode, which is phenomenal.
Good. Okay, good. They took a minute to clap and.
Just call out step numbers that you can verify in procedure 101.
And so just a brief moment there, you saw your team applauding. I mean, you're feeling it too.
Yeah, that. I think I might have just had a heart attack.
Oh.
No, that's a great. It's a great feeling, and you know, wow, like we're talking to our lander in space, and you know, we're officially going to the moon. It's insane.
That happened fast, right?
It happened fast. That's a great acquisition of time, acquisition of signal time. So that couldn't have gone better.
It has been incredibly smooth from beginning to end so far today. Your thoughts on what you've experienced as we've taken this ride into space?
Yeah, like you said, I really couldn't have asked for a better launch environment. That it went perfect, and then the sky out here in Florida, it's a perfectly clear night. When that rocket took off, it headed towards the moon. You could see our launch site with the rocket flying towards it. That was an incredible moment. But really, this whole process, the last several hours, it's gone so smoothly. And then just a cherry on top to get that acquisition of signal so quickly.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. Briefly, let's talk a little bit about what lies on the path a little bit further ahead. You talked about the next few hours and days. But ultimately, after 25 days, you're going to make a burn to the moon, and then you have the biggest part of the challenge of this whole thing, which is landing on the moon. Talk about that.
Absolutely. So we're right. Once we get out of that Earth orbit, we'll go on a 4-day transit to the moon, and we'll do our critical TLI burn to get us into that lunar orbit. Then we'll transit around the moon for about 16 days, and we'll get in basically sequentially closer orbits. We'll go closer to the lunar surface, and so we'll start going through these rolling comms blackouts as the lander goes on the far side of the moon, before ultimately going into our final critical burn, DOI, which then initiates that autonomous landing sequence. So those mission operations controllers that you just saw in there, they'll have to say goodbye for a moment. The lander will go autonomous, and it'll take over. Our vision navigation software and our cameras on board will fully take over to get us safely to the lunar surface, and then they'll go back hands-on while some of the payloads have orbital operations. The rest of the payloads are just beginning their mission at that time. So we'll go into a full lunar day of payload operations and collect as much science as possible.
And through those 14 days on the moon, we're going to do all that science with those 10 payloads. That's going to be exciting. These principal investigators will be there watching, monitoring, and it's got to be exciting for them. And then you're going to try to survive a little bit of the lunar night.
Just a little bit. So we don't expect to survive the full lunar night, but we will operate about 5 hours into the lunar night. And so we should really get to see some phenomenal activity with the regolith, that levitation that we talked about, and get some additional data, imagery, and video into that lunar night.
The views are going to be incredible. I can't wait to see the imagery that you guys are going to be pulling back from the moon. It's going to be spectacular, provided that you get that landing. And it can't be understated just how challenging that is. This would be the first time in 52 years that an American company or entity has performed a soft landing. You have the opportunity before you to do it.
Yeah, it's an incredible feeling. The team, though, has been really training, testing, and planning for doing just exactly that, landing softly on the lunar surface. And, if you look at our lander, we're a little bit wider, we're a little bit shorter. We've done over 100 drop tests on our landing legs, for example. We've done a lot of testing as much as possible, test like you fly, all of our software for that landing opportunity, but really doing everything to make sure that when we get to the lunar surface that we will land softly and we'll be able to fully operate all those payloads.
Well, we are wishing you all the best with the landing outstanding. You and the entire team have done such a fantastic job integrating, working with NASA up until this point. We greatly appreciate that, and I want to thank you for being a part of this launch broadcast. You did a fantastic job, Ray.
Thank you so much. This has been incredible.
We appreciate you sharing your insight and your knowledge. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Firefly, for NASA, and SpaceX. Our coverage of the launch of the Blue Ghost moon lander on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from pad 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center. Again, we appreciate all of you watching. If all goes well, Blue Ghost is expected to land on the moon in late February, about 45 days from now. We will bring you that coverage live right here on NASA Plus. Until then, you can find more information about the mission and other NASA CLIPS launches by going to nasa.gov/CLIPS, CLPS. You can also get updates from Firefly Aerospace, social media accounts that they have on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We want to leave you now with a replay of tonight's launch. For everyone here at NASA, Firefly, and SpaceX in Ray Allensworth, I'm Daryl Nail, wishing you a wonderful morning and reminding you to keep looking up.
T-minus 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff. Go Firefly, go ispace, go Falcon.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
T plus 30 seconds into launch. Falcon 9 has